and welcome to I Am Here with Gabby and Amarilis. We
That's
are
me.
cousins here to share our stories, share the love and healing together. And you can contact us at IAmHerePod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think, or even come up with some suggestions if you want to
Yeah,
see
let us know what you want to hear.
Yeah, let us know what you want to hear. Also, feel free to comment your favorite part of the podcast or the video, and follow us on YouTube at I Am Here Podcast, and on Instagram at I Am Here Pod. Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's
Not
right.
I am here pod. Yes, it's just I am
Yes.
here pod.
No. I am Here Pod. That's it. Period.
One of those
No
things.
period.
One of those things. One of those things.
And then I think we're on Facebook too, so you can get us. So hit us up. Let us know what you think of the podcast. We'd love to hear from
stories. Yeah, send us messages.
Whoop. Okay.
Hey. Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited as always. I think I say that almost every time we do the show, but this is a good one. Excited.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about
being a woman.
Yes, like, that includes whatever this is.
I don't know. It's not crump. No, what is this?
It is crumping, I guess.
Is this crumping?
That's old school crumping. Yeah.
I know something about dancing. I can't dance. You're the one that dances.
And you know what's funny? I learned it from your mama.
What?
I did.
I never learned. She always tried to teach me how to dance, and I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. Anyway.
I think about it. I'm like, yo, Titi Elna and like Titi Mili, Titi Chari, Janet. Like I grew up watching them dance. They were dancing all the time, and they trained me on how to dance.
They didn't train me. Shame.
I don't know.
Never too late. It's never too late to learn.
No, it's not. Thinking about it too, it's just like we're talking about growing up and learning what it is to be a woman. Yep. How did you learn what it is to be a woman? I learned to dance in a certain way. And what's funny is I learned to be very flirty from your mom.
Ha! Ha! That's funny.
Yes. Titi was so flirty. Like innocent, but she's just like a flirty girl. Like very flirty in the way she walked and the way she talked and the way she looked at you.
Yeah, she'd always tell me that was unintentional. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, okay. And then now when I grow up, people are like, you're a very flirty person. I'm like, I really don't mean to be, like, at all. I'm just doing my thing. I'm being nice. And then it's not my fault.
It's not my fault that you think it's flirty. And I always wanted to be like that. I want to be like your mom.
I want to be like my mom too. I think I want to be
She's so cool.
Mom. Yeah.
No, but like legit, when I the reason I brought this topic up is because I was walking back home because I went to the bank, and I was like, I might as well walk there. It's only a couple miles. So I was walking back, and I was more as I was walking back, I for some reason became very cognizant of the way I was walking. I was walking by myself, nobody was with me. So I'm just walking, and then I became cognizant of like the way my hips were swaying and the way like I was walking with like very straight back, like my posture and my head held high. And I'm like, I just became cognizant and very aware, and I started laughing because people have pointed out my walk to me before. Like coworkers are like, dang girl, you got so much flow. Like when you're walking. And I remember Aleja, my little sister, had mentioned when she was in school, your mom worked in the same campus as she was. So she saw Titi so far away, and she saw Titi, she was just like moving, and her hips were going from one side to the other side, one side to the other side. And Alicia was making fun of her. She's like, Titi, so much flow.
Yo, okay, listen. My mom, she will always talk about this, because when she was 17 or something, she took modeling classes, and I'm not sure why, but like,
why not? What do you mean why?
I mean, I'm not sure like if she was like trying to pursue something, or I think she was just taking it for fun.
That was pretty common. in
Yeah. See, I don't know. I didn't know. All I
Mhm.
know is that she would always bring it up because I would always like be hunching. So mommy will always be like, Gabriela, tú tienes que sentarte bien. Like, first of all, sit like correctly so that way you don't show, things that,
Mhm.
and you have to make sure that you're walking with confidence. Like she always said,
Mhm.
that you have to keep your head straight. And she always said it was like holding a pile of books on your head. And she
Yeah,
would
did she
make,
do that for you?
yeah, she did.
I don't know. My mom did it for us too, and I think we just did it for fun. But I don't know why, because I do remember being in the living room and we're all walking, trying to balance a book on our head.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a joke. But we did the same.
She told me about it. She was like, this is what they did in modeling school. And I was like, all
Oh my
right, cool. That's what
gosh,
she
that's
said.
so funny that she did the same thing to you. Like, you watch that on TV and you think it's a joke, but mommy literally did that to us too. When we were walking in the living room with books on our head and just like trying to make sure we had good posture. Like,
Yeah.
posture is so big.
Yeah. And I think a lot, like I've actually thought about this a lot. In my life, it's always been the women that have told me to have a strong
Mm,
posture and like a strong presence. And
mm-hmm.
I always wondered why that was, but I kind of like growing up kind of brings that up to me. Like I think we just had this conversation about how I want to be more intimidating, or I want to like show my you got the Snapchat of me standing
Yes.
on a,
Oh my gosh, your Snapchat standing on a chair trying to be more intimidating. I'm taking up more space right now. And you're gonna listen to what I'm saying because I'm standing on a chair and I have my hands on my hips. Like this girl right here.
well, that's what Wikipedia said. Like I was listening to Wikipedia, WikiHow, and I googled how to be more intimidating because I'm a 5'0" woman, tiny.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're small people,
Yeah.
but like I wanted to appear powerful, and I think it's kind of weird that we have to, and it's like ingrained in us. At this point, we don't really think about it too much, but I still think about it a lot because I'm still improving my posture, but it's because I care about my back. But like
Mhm.
thinking back to it, it was kind of like you have to almost like you feel like you have to be more powerful. You have to like have this sense of not don't mess with me, but it's more like a hey, I'm here. Hey, look at that. I am here.
Your mom set us up for the podcast. That's what this is.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
But it is a bit of a sense of like, I am here, but maybe that's not the way you interpreted it. But I did get an interpretation that as a woman growing up, you do have to have a sense of almost being bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and don't mess with me attitude. Like
Yeah.
I did get that, as being a woman. Like with grandma, she really showed me being feminine, being elegant, like the way you walk and having a lot of confidence and a straight back and your head high, regardless of how you
Yes.
feel. You
Oh.
know, that's always one thing that she's just like, no,
Mm.
you're going to be confident. You're going to keep your head up. And she would, it was like a constant reminder. It was incessant. It wasn't a one-time thing. Because grandma pretty much raised us, because mommy and papi worked. So when we would, before school, we would go there, and after school we would stay there. She would feed us. She would do all the things where, um, if we got sick, they called her. She would pick us up from school. She would take us to the doctor. The doctors knew who she was. Like
Yeah.
she was on a first name basis with them. She would go to our school events. She was there to volunteer. She's pretty much our second mom. She did everything. Like we were her girls. So she took a big role in teaching us what it is to be a woman. In caring for us and how we take care of ourselves, and how we present ourselves. And I think about it, and again, like it's the simple, when I walk, people laugh. And I'm like, my grandma taught me how to walk. Like, it's not my fault. And they laugh. And it's just like, well, my grandma was cool. What do you want me to do? She was so strong. And that's like one thing, like you were talking about being powerful and being present. And that's one thing that she taught us is like, you can be powerful in your femininity, but don't let anybody play with you. So like, cause she would like, she was the one that would be like, don't, like that same attitude of don't mess with me. I'm a woman, but I'm also, I will get you. I will get you. And she shared a lot of those stories of how she protected herself, how, and gave us a lot of, she was just streetwise. My grandma was really streetwise.
That's important
And
to have.
just because of the experiences that she had, but she instilled that in us too, of like, this is what this means, this is what that means, this is what you can do, this is how you check people, this is how you defend yourself. Grandma would be in her dresses and her heels, and then she would come home, kick off her heels, change into a pair of pants, and she would be out there working on her car. She was like, she was out there with the guys working on her car and how to make it work.
Oh,
Like, there was no separation in the aspect. It's like, I could be a woman, but I'm gonna handle things. She was the one that was shoveling snow, not my grandpa. He was not out there. It was her who was shoveling snow out there. She's the one that handled the backyard. Like, she handled business. She ran the finances. So I'm seeing this as a young girl, seeing this woman who's feminine, sexy, elegant, and she gets down and dirty, handles business, is the one that's taking care of the household and the car and all of these things. So I'm seeing this superwoman, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what a woman is. A woman handles the home, cares for kids, and makes sure that the house is running and doesn't take crap from anybody.
wow.
She's the one that's gonna tell you straight up if you're wrong, you know.
Mm,
And my dad would come over, and she would feed him, and like all my uncles would come over. Everybody was hanging out there, and I learned through her and my mom, because my mom was a working professional, just like your mom, just like the tia Elena. She was a working professional. She worked, and I saw her leaving the house dressed and with her makeup on and with her hair did, going and working as an accountant. She would leave, and I saw her as a professional woman. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna be a professional woman. Like, education was
yeah.
big on both sides of our family, like
Yeah.
on my mom's side and my dad's side. Like, being a woman with a master's was not anything weird.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, like, I like how, okay, it's so important how these traditionally, quote unquote, male stereotypical aspects, she was owning those things, because those are not, it's everybody's. It's not just a man's job to do X, Y, and Z or be the provider. It was
Mm.
just a person's job. And I really think and like, how long ago was this? Was this like, this wasn't too, I mean, not that you're not old or anything. I'm not saying
So
that.
you best check yourself.
No, no, listen.
No, but what are you gonna say?
I'm not saying that, but like around the time that she grew up, like that she was working and everything. I assume it was a little frowned upon for women to still be.
Well, my grandma, she she didn't really work. She was not allowed to work. Actually, grandma was not allowed to go to school. When she was growing up, and that's a story that she shared with us afterwards, that she didn't really share with her kids, but then she shared with her grandkids. When you get a little softer and you start getting closer to your grandkids than your kids. But she wasn't allowed to go to school when she was growing up. Her dad and her family wanted her to quit school so she could tend to the house.
Yeah, that's actually very common.
Yeah, I think in like our grandparents' generation, because I know Mama Ramonita had the same issue.
Yeah, she had
Like,
the same
our
problem.
mutual grandma had the same issue where she was not allowed. But Mama Nilda on Mommy's side, she would sneak out to
Yep.
go to school. Isn't
Yeah,
that crazy that they had to do that?
they had to do that, and yeah, I think that's insane, because right now it's kind of like everyone is told, okay, gotta go to school, regardless of gender. And they just, it was something that they had to sneak out to do. It's kind of like when you go to a party with your friends, you have to sneak out the window. And I mean, not that I did that. I'm not one of, not ratting myself
You're
out.
telling on yourself.
Um, no, I was a good girl, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
that's so funny because we take those things for granted a lot of the
But I
time.
think also part of it is like, because our grandmothers were forbidden from getting a higher education, I think that's why our moms became like super, super professional, almost to like an extreme.
Yeah.
Because I know mommy is definitely very much into her work, and she loves her work, and she loves studying just like your mom. Um,
Yeah.
so then we grew up with seeing very nurturing um, housewives, pretty much, because both were like our grandmothers were housewives who tended to the house, who nurtured, who cared for their kids, who cared for their grandkids, who just were loving caretakers. Um, and then we saw our mothers being the working professional,
Yeah.
highly educated women.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because our grandmothers weren't able to do it, they did everything they could to make sure their daughters could.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too, because like you said, we were both raised by our grandmas. Like you were raised by your maternal grandmother, and
Yep.
I was also raised by my maternal grandmother, but they were separate. They were completely
Yeah,
different
your
people.
maternal grandmother is my paternal grandmother.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting because you had an entirely different idea of, at least in my opinion, of femininity.
Yes,
While
I agree.
yes, so like while we both had that same type of experience with our mom being that
Mhm.
professional, strong woman, and then our grandmothers also being strong and nurturing and tending to the house a lot more. I I
Mm.
just think it's interesting how they, depending on how they grew up and the experiences that they had, shaped them into who they were. Because I remember you would tell me a lot about your mama Nilda and how she had to fend for herself, had to be the one to be, like you said, like have that kick-ass attitude, like, hey, like here I am, and I'm going to, like, if you mess with me,
Yes, because okay, um, Mama Nilda, I remember. I just bringing up. She married my grandfather, who was a merchant marine.
yeah,
So he was out of the house for months at a time. So she was left home to care for her kids and their kids, like the girls, because they just had girls. Um, and one of the stories, just to give you a little bit of Mama's attitude, and how she was very nurturing, but she wasn't going to take nothing from nobody. She was going to defend whatever.
yeah,
So one night, Papa, he comes home without letting her know. He came back from his trip early. So it's late at night and he's just coming into his house, coming to his home. Grandma comes out because she hears a noise and she's in her robe, she's in her bata, okay, because she's still a classy lady, so she has her long robe and it's all nice and satin, and she's this is the story they tell us. So she has her satin robe and she comes out with the gun. And she comes out with the gun and she's out here, she's like about to, and he's screaming, Nisha, don't shoot, don't shoot, it's me, it's me. Because she's gonna handle business.
yeah. Oh, that's so
Ever,
funny.
I can never imagine like Mama Ramonita doing that.
No, because she had an entirely different experience growing up, and of course, like she was kick-ass in her own way. But I think it's
Yes.
really, really important, like the fact that you had explained to me a lot of the situations that caused your mama needed that to get to that point where she felt like she had to fend for herself. Whereas I know a lot of the time in Mama Jamonita's case, she had to experience similar things, but she was like very much forced into being the person to take care of the house entirely because of her. She had a large amount of brothers and she had one younger sister, and her mom died when she was 19,
Hmm.
and she immediately was thrown into the situation where she had to be the one to help in the house. She had to be the one
She
that
became
essentially was
mom.
a mom. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I actually look a lot to that because like in my situation too, like I lost my mom at 15, and then even though like we all have like a much more mutual understanding of like this is what we can do to help in the house, it was not like that at her time. It was very sexist, and she had experienced a lot of sexism, especially coming from her dad, she also had to be his caretaker because he was blind, and then she had
Mm-hmm.
all of that on top of not being allowed to work, and she would sneak out Like, she would also sneak out. She took advantage of the fact that he was blind,
Yes.
though. And she snuck out, and she would sell clothes to the private school, to like the private school girls, because they were richer, and she was entirely in poverty. Um, so like our grandmothers both had to like sneak out to do what they needed to do in order to provide. And she would sell those clothes to her students too, because she would also like semi teach. She never finished. I don't think she ever finished high school. Like, I don't even think she really, because she definitely didn't go to
Mm.
college.
And no, it's funny because like I think about that. It's just like they had to fight for their education because it was not needed. As a woman, your job is to tend to the house and tend to your family. That's it. And just seeing how they rebelled, you know, each one in their own way, but they totally rebelled and were like, F this, I'm going to get educated and do me in some way or another.
Yeah.
Because with Mama Nilda, she also would have stories of like she did finish high school. She had to fight through it because her mom died at 7 when Mama was 7.
Yeah.
She died of tuberculosis, and it was the same story of having to tend to the home because her siblings were all grown.
Mm.
And when their mom died, they left her like, I ain't staying here. But grandma was only 7, so she stayed, and then she became the woman of the house, and she had to tend and clean and all these things. She didn't have an escape, but she got a college education. Let me tell you how. This is how, like this, and it just all goes back to being a woman of just like the smarts, the just the wittiness that I think we learned from the examples we had of grandma got a college education, but she didn't ever get a degree. Why? Because when my grandpa went to school, he went back to school and he went to college. You know who did all his homework and his assignments? Grandma.
Oh.
He has the degree to his name, but all the work was grandma.
Mm.
So she could sit with me and really help me with my homework because she understood all the things, even though she didn't have a degree.
Oh, that's so crazy.
Because her role as a woman was supporting her man, but she also knew this is a way I could learn.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Oh, that's okay. So this is like kind of related, but not really. So there's this really good play called In the Heights.
Mm.
And I think about it a lot. And there's this one part where there's this girl and she's singing about her grandmother, or the community grandmother, like in the El Barrio, that had passed away. And there's a part where it's like, teach me everything you know, is like a line of the song, because the grandma wasn't able to have the education that she wanted because she had immigrated from Cuba. And she was like essentially teaching her all the things she learned in school. And like I think about that, and I think about what you're saying, and then I also think about our other grandma. I think about Mama Jamonita, and like
Mm-hmm.
my earliest memories are sitting with her, and then I'm like in her house, because she raised me practically growing
Mm-hmm.
up. And I'm sitting with her, and then I have to do math or something, and one, she's blind. Two, she doesn't know much about any, not, I mean, not anything, that's not what I want to say, but like any of like the algebra we were doing,
Mm-hmm.
because she never learned that part of it. And she would just sit with me, and she would ask me what I learned, and she would ask me about the stuff I learned in school. And then even though
She
I
had so
didn't,
much curiosity. She
yeah,
wanted to know.
curiosity. And that curiosity was like support. It was like, I may not have been able to have this, but I support that you have it, and through you I have it in a certain way. And I think about femininity, and I think about all of the things
Mm.
we learned about how to be a woman, and how essentially, like I said, our grandmas were entirely different,
Yes.
but they, like, thinking about the femininity part too, like my grandma, like our grandma, the one that we share, Mama Jamonita, like I think about her, and I think about how when it came to femininity, it was kind of like, okay, these things have to do with, okay, these are the home aspects of it, being nurturing, because these are important, but also the whole aspect of being careful, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Except it wasn't so much of a
It wasn't a fight back.
it wasn't a fight back attitude. It was almost like be careful, like not meaning to instill fear, but it was instilled there.
It's almost like a runaway, and because I got that too. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I was raised by Mama Nila, but we were like a block away from Mama Ramonita's house.
Exactly.
It was not far at all. So we were there every week, and she was a pivotal point and contributor into being a woman. And I think of like those lessons too, of just like be careful, guard yourself, because there's almost a message of be vulnerable. You're vulnerable. You're like almost a gift as a woman, and there's this vulnerability. Whereas with like Mama, it was like Mama Nilda, I learned that as a woman I could be feminine and walk in my power, and fight with my power. With Mama Nila, there was like a toughness, like I felt so much love, but it was like a very protective, strong love. Where when Mama Ramonita, it's so funny because I have memories where I'm just like, there's simple things, but the way she brushed my hair was so different.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember staying with her for a certain time in my childhood, and noticing that in my head it switched, because my mom and my maternal gram were a little rough. We were a little rough because they're like, you're a woman, you could take it, like you're just strong person, you just got to take it, right? But going to Mama Ramonita's, she had this tenderness, this softness, and just with brushing my hair where she was not pulling it, and I didn't have to like cry, like she could just, like, it's simple small things, like she could undo my knots, because my hair was always very long and very like difficult to manage. And she could have this softness and apologize to me, like, oh, I'm sorry, did that hurt? I'm sorry, like, okay, and listening to me, like being able to listen to me as a child, and give me that respect of just hearing what I had to say and being curious, like you're saying, being like very supportive in that way of, she taught me that a woman can be tender, a woman can be soft. There's this wisdom and loving kindness that comes from a feminine energy, and I got that from Mama Ramonita. I learned that from her, of just like, whoa, I don't have to be like this tough girl. I could be like
let
soft.
the guard down. I love that. It's so interesting, because I also think about supportiveness, and I really learned that a woman could be supportive, and something that makes, it's not just women, it's just people in general. We should be supportive of each other, but I think women, we need to stick together and we need to be supportive of each other. And that's something I learned with Mama too. Like, she was very, Mama Jamonita, she was very supportive of her children, supportive of me, supportive of her grandchildren. Whenever, like, I think back to my earliest memories of being a little kid, and then me telling her, I want to be an astronaut, and then her being like, you can do it, you're smart. Or me being like, oh, I want to be, I even said, I want to be I didn't even like football at the time. I want to be a football coach. And she'd be like, you can do it, you got this. Or I'm like, oh, I want to be a secretary, I want to be, like, all these different things. And then I remember the day that I told her, and I was like maybe 12, I told her I wanted to be a writer, and she like said, yeah, do it, you can do it, so start right now. You can say that you're saying that you're gonna do it,
start
but
it.
just start right now. She was all about action. It's like, okay, do it. And of course, everything she did was with love. So she straight up was like, okay, but if you're gonna do it for the right reasons. Don't do it because of money. And she always told me, like, don't do the thing that will give you more money. Do the thing that'll make you happy. And it's weird, because most people, when I used to say I want to be a writer, always were like, give a backup plan, or no, be a doctor. Or like, even my mom was like, no, you're smart enough to be a doctor. She was all about education. and like out to the point where like I even like pretended I wanted to be a doctor, and then I went to school, like when I went to high school, I took anatomy, and like even though I really wanted to take creative writing 2 or like another creative writing class, I was like, no, I'm gonna take anatomy because I'm smart enough to be a doctor. But then mama Jamonita, like my grandma, would always be like, did you write anything new? Like what's up? Like,
Not only did she support it, but she encouraged you to practice it.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
She would always ask me to read, even if it were in English, and she asked me to translate it. So whenever I wrote a story or a poem, she had me translate it. She would have me read it in English entirely first, and then translate it line by line, so that way she could understand what I was saying. And she always had something to say about it. So, like, being supportive was
She
so,
helped you really develop your craft. That's pretty insane, Gabi.
yeah. And I think it's interesting because, I mean, of course, I always had to be the one to read it to her because, like, she couldn't read it herself. Like, I mean, she had her little magnifying glass, but, like, that was,
Yeah, like she wasn't completely blind, but it was hard for her to see.
yeah, it was gonna be too much of a strain on her eyes. So it was kind of like the fact that she even asked for me to, like, give her copies of my writing was
Mm.
so cute because I was like, I know that even sitting down and like trying to read it is hard for you, but and it's in another language, not even in your language. And like
Mm-hmm.
I remember when she passed away, actually, like after she died, we're looking through the stuff she had, and she had
Mm-hmm.
piles of my short stories and my poems. And I remember thinking to myself, they're in English, they're not good. I wrote them when I was 11 or 12, and she just kept them. And she was, what, 20? No, I was like 20 or 21 when she passed away. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that she still kept those things,
Mm-hmm.
it just showed how, and like you said, encouraging and supportive she
And she
was.
did that with all her grandchildren,
Yeah.
all of them. And that's the thing, like, I think about those moments because we had so many different examples of strong women, and they were strong in so many different ways. Like with her, it was this tenderness, this genuine love for people, for her family, like caring for us and our stories. Like she would really sit and listen to our stories on purpose. We would do the craziest things. And she would sit at the table and be like, tell me your story. You know, and we're talking about how we were running in the cornfields in our pajamas and we got pulled over by the cops. And she's like, tell me more about what happened. And she's just laughing with us. But just the like genuine care and love and nurturing and the whole did you eat? Did you eat? No, I'm good. I'm good. Here's a plate of food. Like, wait a minute. I just told you I don't want to eat. Here's your plate of food. Like this whole nurturing. And you know what's crazy? I catch myself doing it. Like I catch myself doing that. I'm like, it's so stuck in me because as I grew up, because it wasn't just my mom, but my other grandma would do the same thing of like, do you want coffee? You want juice? What do you want? You want like, there's a love in feeding and nurturing.
Yes.
And as a woman, I think of like, well, that's what a woman does. You learn um, nurturing. I care. I provide. You know.
Yes.
But then there's also this. I have to tend to the house. I have to clean and it's not even a have to. It's almost like I
Yeah.
want to. Like I
Yes.
find joy in cleaning, which sometimes, but because sometimes I get too overwhelmed in it. Like today, for example, I was like, yeah, I woke up, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put the music on, I'm gonna clean, I feel good, I'm gonna make my home, and we're gonna, right? I'm gonna feel the like, the home vibes, and it's just like taking
Yeah.
pride in taking care of how it feels. Because it was, you know, another thing of like always coming to my grandma's house and she would rearrange something. Like now she had new wallpaper that she wanted, like very much into just how things felt and the
Yeah.
beauty of it, right?
I
So I'm
think
like,
it's
yes, I want to arrange things and I want to make it nice. But then I thought about it because I knew we were going to talk about this today. And like 5 hours later, as I'm still cleaning my house, all right? Because I'm on my knees. Let me tell you, I was like buffing the floor because I have wood flooring. So I'm on the floor on my hands and knees, like buffing it, making sure it's nice and shiny. Like, and I'm like exhausted. I'm exhausted. But I'm like, this is mommy's fault. Like in my head, I'm thinking this is mom's fault because it can't be me, you know? So I'm like, this perfectionism that I had just with the cleanliness of my home and the way I do things, I also learned from the women in my family. And it's an important part of being a woman, of being clean and being extremely clean and doing things exactly the right way. So I'm like, there is this level of, because I remember Saturdays were the day of cleaning. We talked about that already. But it's just like Saturdays is like, all right, you wake up, you have the music on and you're cleaning. And we would like have our jobs. And if things were not done properly, like if I thought it was done because I'm as a child and as a is good enough,
right? Then
oh man, like I would get woken up from bed and be like, no, come back here. Like go redo it. Go redo it until it's done right.
I think too, but like I just came to me right now to a lot of the times that's almost like an adaptation thing. Like it kind of like is, and it's also passed down from generation to generation because in their time, like our, and also in our grandmother's time and our great grandmother's time, the only thing they could control was their home. The only thing you could truly control was making that a home. And the fact that they could give it their all is something that's passed on to us. And while like the sentiment is beautiful, because the fact that a woman is home, a woman is a lot of the time.
Say that again.
A woman is home.
Oh my gosh, I felt that.
We're not a vacation spot. We're a place to live in and to cherish and to love, and that's what a woman is. And like that sentiment is beautiful, and then it's kind of sad.
That was powerful, Gabi.
Oh,
I'm just like chewing on it. I'm like, whoa.
Oh no.
I'm sorry.
Like, no, it's all good. It's all good. But what I think about that too is it's a little bit sad because at the time that our grandparents and our great grandparents were around, the only thing they could control was like what they had, being housewives, cleaning, like raising your kids. So you give it your all to the point where unknowingly it's almost passed down through generation to generation. That perfectionism.
Yes, it is.
This is the thing that, this is what makes you strong in a way, like to them. And we don't know why we do the things we do, and we don't know why we're so perfectionistic. But a lot of the times it's that same reason. It's like we want to make a home. We want to spread that love. We want to be a home for someone.
Oh my gosh, it's like crazy because you say like, okay, now I'm thinking about it, of like my grandmothers being forbidden from working outside of the home, and like their messages like being a woman is cleaning and cooking and doing it right because you have people depending on you and you have to do it in a certain way. And it's almost like being a woman is being clean, and that's pretty much like part of your identity. Right? Oh my gosh, like blowing my brains here. Like, and then passing that on to our moms, because mommy is such a smart woman and almost like living the life grandma couldn't have. Being able to get an education, to work, and to have a career. And almost like our grandmothers being so proud of their daughters because, wow, they could live something that I can never have. And I think that's a big part into why our grandmothers raised us as their grandchildren, because they knew that being a woman is caring for family. And they also knew that their daughters did not have the time to fully do that because they were living a profession, they were living a career. And because our grandmothers wanted to support that, they took away that burden from them of being able to, like, the burden of having babysitters and daycares. Because I know my maternal grandma was like, ain't nobody else caring for my grandkids, because if something happens to them, they better be with me, kind of thing. And again, that protective factor, but also wanting to open the path for her daughter to be able to walk without having to worry about something else, about not of sacrificing her education and sacrificing her career because she also wants a family. So it's almost like the grandmothers are supporting their daughters by caring for us and loving us. And I just remember like the perfectionism mommy had, and sometimes the things watching my mom as her kid, of like, there was times of self-doubt of like, am I a good enough woman because I can't do what my mom does? I can't be my mom. And I'm like, yo, but you're working for like 40 plus hours and going to school. Like, it's impossible. It's impossible to be like so advanced in your career and also raise 3 girls that she had at the time, then also came 10 years later, and being able to keep a house the way you were taught to, like to have every detail exactly where it is. It's impossible for one woman to do that. And as a grown woman now, I think of like wanting to live that and achieve that level of very tidy house and clean and a home, while also having a profession and excelling in that and being an all-star in that. And I'm like, these were 2 different women doing 2 different jobs. I just got the benefit of it. My grandma was taking care of the home. She was taking care of us to open a path for mom to live her career. And that was another like strong woman that I saw like doing what she had to do. But there were 2 different people doing the job of what I thought one woman is.
Yep. That is, and then I think that brings about a completely different type of perfectionism, and trying to be 2 women, trying to be 2 different types of women, or just like trying to do everything.
All of it. Because that's what a woman is, Gabi. Like, that's part of it. It's like, being a woman is you do all of the things and you do them perfectly. But it's not.
I know, but that's what we were taught, and that's what's like, it just.
And it wasn't something that they told us. It's just like something we saw and we're like, oh.
Yeah, it's something that we were taught by just watching it. Just watching it. Like, wow. And like, I think too, there's sadness and there's shame in not being able to do all of those things, depending on who you're speaking to too. Like, growing up with a lot of aunts and uncles and a lot of aunts, I was surrounded by them constantly. And I think about everyone had a completely different idea of what being a woman was, but also, even if they shared that idea of a woman as someone who tends and cares for the house, they all had different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
They all had different ways, and in the process, that perfectionism was like taken over, and like a lot of the time that was placed on their children, or on, in my case, me.
Yeah, because you became a child for a lot of aunts and uncles.
Yeah. And that idea of, okay, if you want to cut the onions, you have to cut them like this, or, oh, you have to, like, there were so many times. Okay, if I could tell you all the ways that I learned how to make rice, I can't even make rice to begin with. Like, and then still, apparently, there were so many different ways I was taught. Like, it was just the idea of there was so much instruction, so many different opinions, in so many different ways, that I would beat myself up and be like, I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing this right. And I actually was talking, and I know that doesn't necessarily have to be just with women, because I know my dad had a similar experience. He was explaining it to me. But I think for the women, it's kind of a little bit intense, because it's not just, okay, we have to be a professional and we have to, like you said, excel in that and be good and get the promotion and everything, but we also have to tend to the house. and we also have to do it correctly. And what does that look like for me when I've been told that there's so many different ways for it to be correct?
It's so funny because I remember, because I didn't have that experience. I didn't have that experience where I had so many different rules. Well, with cooking, with cleaning, and it's funny because okay, so I laugh because mommy took a big role in helping me know how to tend to a house. Mama, she did everything. When I try to help her, she would push me out of the kitchen, be like, get out of here, get out of here. Like, and I'm like, I'm trying to help you. And she's like, yeah, that's sweet. And then she would bump me with her hip. She's like, yeah. Get like, get out of here. Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, that's cute. Get out. Like, but with mom really trained me on how to do certain things. And she really took that strong role of like, this is how you do it. But not with cooking, right? Because mommy didn't like to cook. Mom knows how to cook and she's a very good cook, but she don't like it. So she's not going to do it, right? But teaching us how to clean, she was very perfectionist with it. And I remember arguing with mom a lot with cleaning I'm like, why do I have to do it that way?
Yep.
And she was like, and oh man, it was like, mom will tell you, if you ask mommy, she would tell you like, I was one of the most difficult kids. I think if not the most difficult kid. I'm trying to be nice to myself, but I think she would tell you I was the most challenging kid that she had to raise because I was so headstrong. I think maybe I got better in time, but I would always challenge her. And that was frustrating. And I remember like after I got older, we would talk about it because she's like, oh, you were so difficult. I would tell you to do one thing. If it was pick it up and you would like bend your fingers backwards not to pick it up, right? Yeah, I was extreme. But I remember like being like, why do I have to do it that way if the end product is the same? Like, why do I have to do it your way? It doesn't make sense the way you do it. Look, I did it. It's like, it's done. Like, why are you hassling me? Right? Don't watch me how I do it. I'm just doing it. And I remember talking to her after I grew up, and she's like, I learned through my kids that there can be 10 million ways to do the same thing. Because that was like a hard lesson for her. She really thought that you have to do one thing. And I guess I broke her. And we probably broke her. But yeah, but it's just like, she kind of ceded to the fact like, okay, it doesn't have to be my way, because she's still doing it, and that's okay. And I remember you coming over here on vacation and you having that little nervousness of like, I'm like, go cook breakfast, go cook and do something. Just make something. It doesn't matter. Just go ahead and cook. I got to do something. Nope. You're like, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to do it right. I don't know if it's going to be right. I'm like, I don't know how to dice these things. I'm like, the girl, this is what you do. Yeah. You just go in there and you grab whatever feels right. And if you feel like onion powder, you feel like onion powder. If you feel like dicing it like this, you dice it that way. It doesn't matter as long as it comes out good. We're going to eat it anyways. Like, do you and feel whatever feels good. Because that's the way I learned how to cook. And that's the thing. That wasn't a woman thing. In our household, it was an everybody thing. Because again, mommy didn't like cooking and papi loved to cook. He loved to feed people. But it brings up a question, because we're talking about like perfectionism and like just household duties and things like that. And I was mentioning how papi was a pivotal role in teaching me how to cook. And you mentioned that it didn't just happen with women, that your dad also mentioned that he had a lot of conflicting stories and what was right and what was wrong. So my question to you is, how did the men in your life teach you what it means to be a woman?
Ooh. Oh.
Boom!
That's a really, really interesting question. Wow. I think they learn from the men in my life, what they have taught me is almost like what they've learned in some aspects is what they've learned from the women in their lives and who they are. Because okay, so it's kind of weird because my mom died when I was 15, but I feel like I'm getting to know her through my dad all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, even though it's him saying the things about her, I'm still learning from her. So I don't know if that counts necessarily, but like learning about the things that she did and how she cared for my dad, and not just cared, but like supported, uplifted, and how he uplifts her. He taught me that to it's okay to be the one that is the provider now and then. Like, it's okay, because even though my mom had the job that paid more, and he was never ashamed of that, you know. My dad didn't make as much money. He has an associate degree, but he was not, it's not something he's ashamed of. It was never something my mom was ashamed of either. It was something that they shared equally, and he had this thing about he would step back to help her step in, when it came to being the provider for the family a lot of the time. And he taught me that it's okay to be those things, that there's nothing shameful about that there's nothing wrong with being the one who takes care of the finances, that takes care of like organizing things when it came to getting things done. And it was not that he was not doing it, because he was also helping her, but it was a lot. He was just taking a step back in order for her
to live her dream. It's almost like that. It wasn't even about being like the provider per se, but she had a dream of advancing her career, and he saw that and wanted to support that.
And what I learned about being a woman is that it's not about being a woman isn't necessarily about being the person that's like in the house all the time doing all these different domestic things. It's like the man can do that too.
Yeah. I told you my dad was the one that was cooking at home, and he would come home from work and clean.
Exactly. And that's something that my dad taught me, because like he would be the one to take me to school in the morning, get me ready, like pack my lunch, like teach me how to like.
That's so cute.
Yeah, he was the one who did it. And then he would take me to school, he would pick me up, he was the one who took care of me a lot of the time, because my mom would have to be studying or have to do things. And he taught me that it was okay. And it was okay and it was more than okay to pursue a career, because it's not about being a woman when it comes to that. It's about
being a person.
Being a person, but also having a partner too that supports you. Because a lot of the time we feel we have to be X, Y, and Z because the other opposite person, or not the opposite, our other partner or our partner will have this judgment of us or won't let us do something. But in reality, it's when you find the right person, like you can be whoever you want. You can be someone, you can chase your dreams, and you can do what you need to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what he taught me.
And what that's crazy is, because now thinking about where our grandmothers came from and seeing where you as a woman can be, they were limited because of the image and ideal of what a woman should and should not be. There you are years later, where the message you're getting from your dad is, as a woman, you are limitless. As a woman, you're not stopped. You're powerful, and you can go as far as you choose to.
Yeah. What did your dad teach you about being a woman?
That's a good question, even though I asked you.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of my thoughts.
Yeah, I was like
because I was like thinking of the men generally in my life. I think with Bobby himself, there was always something that he would mention of, would be very proud. He would be very proud of his daughters. You know, he would, and he would brag on us,
Yeah.
but he would say, my daughters are very feminine, but they are not delicate.
Mm.
And I remember sitting there at the table, like when he's saying this to like one of his homies, because he never brags to us. Like he would never say nice things to us.
Oh
He
no.
would say nice things about us to other people, and we just happen to be in the room sometimes when it would happen. But for the
Happens.
most part,
Mhm.
like when like the relationship that I had with Bobby and like that I saw with my mom too was very playful and bully type. Like it was a lot of tit for tat, like a lot of jokes and like
Yeah.
teasing. And that's how I understood what like his love language. I know we talked about this before, that may have been acts of service, but I think his love language is bullying.
Ah,
Because
aren't we the we all have a little bit of that.
because so we wouldn't hear that, but he would say that. And I remember being at the table of like when he said, my girls are feminine but they're not delicate. And I remember looking at him and not getting it. I was a teenager and I'm like, what? And I punched him in the arm. I'm like, what? Like almost trying to prove that I was delicate by punching him in the arm. Like afterwards I'm like, nah.
I was like, wait, maybe I'm not helping my case.
And he would just laugh, right? He would just laugh, but I'm like, those are the like, he almost encouraged what mommy and grandma instilled in my brain. He almost like cemented and confirmed that being a woman is being feminine but holding your own. And I think that's a big thing of what he admired about mommy, that he would tease her and he would make fun of her and he would say stupid things, and she always had a comeback. Like, and she always had a comeback that was smarter than his and made him shut up.
That's living the dream. That's honestly like that's relationship goals. Like having
Oh
a
my gosh, that's funny.
no, literally, like I aspire to do that. Like your mom, I just want to be like, listen, you say this about me, but of course, like with love. It's never like
Yes, it always was love. And like it was not like I remember talking about it, I think, to one of our cousins. And I'm like, yo, that's like the kind of love that I learned, because that's what I saw, like the teasing, the playfulness, like the back and forth. None of this I love you cute stuff. None of that. It's more like the back and forth, like blah, 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 right? He's like, that's because your parents had that third grade love. And I'm like,
third grade love. I love that.
I was like, wait, what? And I was like, I guess. But but all that to say, like, I learned through my dad that a woman is witty, a woman is smart, a woman is sharp, and she's going to outsmart you, because my mom would always have the smartest comebacks. And he would like tease her to the point where he couldn't tease her anymore because he had nothing else to say, because she shut him down. And she would
Ah,
embarrass him
I
in
love
front of
that.
everybody. And what would he do? He would laugh. Like he would laugh. And as she would walk away, like her little prideful walk, like, I did that.
I won. Yeah.
I won. She wouldn't see those moments, but I would, because I would watch them. She would leave and he would smile and he would admire her as she walked away. Or when she was singing and rocking the baby, like when Also was born, she would sing and rock and he would tease her. He'd be like, you're messing up that song. Don't, like that song, you're killing that song. My mom sang it, but you're killing that song. Don't sing that song. And she's like, whatever. And she's singing. And then as he would laugh, just to bother her, he would admire her and look at her with so much love and just watch her from like the door frame. She had her back turned towards him. She didn't see that. And I remember telling her these stories, and I'm like, you don't know the way he looked at you? Like you don't remember, like he expressed it in a different way. He didn't say those words to you, but he expressed it in the way he looked at you and the way he talked to you, just like in the teasing and the holding you. And he always opened the door for mom. Like Papi passed away about like a week before their 25th anniversary.
Mm.
But that man, I grew up seeing him always opening the car door for Mom. Always. Like, she would just sit there and wait, and he will walk around and open the door. And I remember telling Mom, I'm like, Mom, you can open the door. Why you don't open the door for yourself? And she's like, no, he's the man. He could do it. If he wants to do it, he's going to open the door for me. Like, and she would, like, yes. Like, so what I learned from my dad about being a woman is being witty, being smart, being a person that I can challenge you in certain ways, and it's loved. It's loved. And what I learned from my mom in those moments was demanding and respecting the role as a woman, you know, kind of demanding the respect from my man, and allowing my man to be a man, you know, allowing my husband to be a man and care for me. Like, I'm gonna let him take this role because that's my role as a woman, you know, that's what I deserve. And I like, and that's for me as a grown-up now. I'm like, that is a big challenge for me. Those are lessons that I learned, but I know that they're still hard for me to almost live out.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think it's interesting because it's like, it's almost like we definitely, at least we should know. I want to learn to know that these are things that we can do for ourselves, but we let the other person do because it's an act of love from their end.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times people maybe are shown that they're not able to do those things, that this is something that the man can do and we can't. But it's not that.
It's almost like a sense of like, and I know I say this because I do it, you know, and I want to touch on this because it came to my mind of like, these are things and experiences that we learned and how we identify for ourselves as the woman we want to be.
Yeah.
But it's not like the definition of what women is in general, because everybody identifies it for themselves. And I think we see that in just our conversation of how it's kind of changed over generations.
Yeah, of course.
And how each one of us define it for ourselves, because this is really just a very personal of what I think a woman is for me, the kind of woman that I want to be. But it doesn't mean that every woman is the same, and is not the same and should be treated according to what that woman demands, right?
Yes.
Can't
generalize this. Yeah.
But I do think about me and the challenges that I have as the woman that I want to be. Not emasculating men in order to be like seen as a tough, like, you know, equal part. I think sometimes like being able to accept that love and accept the person's role in my life is something that I'm still working on and recognize. And it comes back to that softness of being able to stand in my femininity and not have to have all this masculine energy to feel seen, to be big, to be safe.
Yeah,
because
but what does that mean though? Like masculine energy versus feminine energy, like what does that mean though? Can't it be the same? Can't like being strong and even taking up space and bold, can't that be a woman trait, a feminine trait? Or
this is the way I understand it, and it may be wrong, so anybody who's listening or watching, help correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the way I understand it. There is a difference between feminine and woman. It's not the same thing. There's a difference between masculine and man. It's not the same thing. The way I understand it is we all have feminine and masculine traits and energy. I almost think of it as like right side of the brain, left side of the brain, where traditionally, left side of the brain, which is more like considered like it's more in charge of like analysis, organization, math, logical. Traditionally, that's considered masculine energy. We all have that.
Okay.
We all have masculine energy, no matter what sex you are or what gender you are. We all have that. Now there are like the what is it, the right side of the brain is more creative, more passionate, more nurturing, more emotive.
Mm-hmm.
That's traditionally seen as feminine, but
Ah,
we also all have that, no matter sex or gender,
oh man.
right?
Ah.
So because I even took a test. I took a test on like how masculine or feminine like energy, like what is your dominant
Yeah.
traits. I took this test, and
So
I mean,
funny.
it's not like a valid, reliable test, but it's one of
Of
those
course.
tests.
Yeah.
So it's just like just what feminine or masculine energy and trait. And I
Mm-hmm.
came out more masculine. Like my
Mm-hmm.
masculine traits were dominant. I still had a lot of feminine qualities, but my masculine traits
Mm-hmm.
over exceeded my feminine traits, according to this test. And let me tell you something. I'm not gonna put them on blast, but
Yeah.
also took the same test because I was like, I want to see what you come out like.
Yeah.
So this is interesting, and this was years ago, so it may have changed.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll put the test off. Oh, that
Oh,
would be
that
fun.
would be fun. Yeah.
But his feminine energy and my feminine energy were at the same exact level, same exact level. But the difference was my masculine energy was way higher, and his was way low, according
Mm.
to this test. So according to this test, I had more masculine energy. My masculine traits were more dominant, and my brother's feminine qualities
So
were
weird.
more dominant.
Okay,
And
this is
if you look at us, he is more of the nurturing, emotive, passionate, poetic, creative
yeah.
person. I am more of like the analytical, like very like, okay, but no, let's get things done, kind of more assertive, in your face person.
Yeah, like okay, so when you say this entire time, I'm just thinking about how so doesn't I mean it makes sense and I get why it makes sense traditional roles and the terminology attached to the connotation of everything that happened. But I'm also thinking about my dad and my mom was all about
Yes.
math, was all about thinking why.
Yes. My mom and my dad too. Like mommy's an accountant. She's the
Exactly.
one running the
Yeah.
numbers. She's doing all these things.
Yeah.
Papi's the one like doing art, and he's the one that like showed us how to like be creative in that artistic way of
Exactly.
creating things. Mom would sit there and be like, I don't know anything about art, girls. You better talk to your dad.
That was my mom. That was literally my mom. Like my mom, like she wasn't a traditional crafty mom. She was like, okay, I'm gonna take care of the finances, but it's because I like math. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, like whatever. My dad, he loves to read. He's very like poetic. He's very like creative. Whenever like you said, you mentioned this on the Father's Day episode, but like he would tell stories, like going to bed, he would come up with these crazy stories,
Yes.
and it was so imaginative. And he was all about building space for imagination. And I remember my mom didn't know how to react to that a lot of the time because I would talk to myself, like joking around. I'd be like, oh,
Gosh,
this is my little house
that's
and whatever.
exactly what I had with my mom too.
And then
She
she'd
didn't
be
know
like,
how to deal with it.
yeah. And then I remember like, Titi didn't like my godmother would be like, she still tells me stories, and my mom would like sit her down and be like, I don't know what's wrong with with Gabriela. Like she's talking to herself and like doing these things, and she's like, well, she's using her imagination. And she's like, I'm just not used to that kind of like energy. Like what she's doing is different. And Gilberto gets it more than me. Like so I
That's exactly what happened with me and Papi. Like me and
exactly.
Papi would sit on the stairs and we would talk, and I would ask all these crazy questions and all these things, and he'd be like, yeah, and then you know what? What about this? And I would try it with mom, and she's like, girl, she's like, no. Yeah. But it's different because feminine is equated to woman, but it's not true. Like their feminine traits are just the more emotional, like creative, passionate things. But it doesn't mean that women have those. You know, it's
So
not that women are the only ones that have those, because we do.
like
It's just like not
that
dominant.
makes me think about because like I'm an English major and we study a lot etymology, which is just the study of words and the history of words and how they came to be, and just like the idea. And like when you're saying this, like I have to readjust my brain because I'm so used to seeing feminine and masculine as
Female and male.
male and female, and then now I'm realizing, okay, this is just the etymology is different. Like, this is where it happened originally. This is where the connotation is the same for me, because that's how I grew up hearing masculine, male, female, feminine. However, like it's like more of like a historical thing where we have stereotypes and we kind of place people in the box, and say women are like X, Y, and Z, and men are X, Y, and Z. Like the whole idea of like, oh, the logic side of your brain, because a lot of the time, like even in the workplace, sometimes people like don't trust women with certain things because they think that they won't think logically because they will be quote
Run
unquote
by
too
their
emotional.
emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. Or hysterical, which I hate that word. Hate that word. I've been called that many times by men. But
did you punch him in the face? That's my answer to everything.
I should have. This was way back in the day when I didn't know how to defend myself. But,
oh man.
But, like it was, so like hearing that is kind of like it's an adjustment for me.
Yeah.
So it's like really weird because then I'm just like, because like my natural reaction is to get angry because I'm like, I'm logical, but then I'm like, damn it, like, you know what I mean? But it's just like, okay, it's different. These are the words, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think, and again, it's just my understanding of it and the way I kind of interpreted it. But I also think we live in a very masculine-driven society and culture. And like it's almost like the effects of patriarchy, I would think, of what, because when you asked, you said why can't you be a woman and be strong? Like you asked me, why is it emasculating to be strong? Well, and that's what brought this all up. It's just like the fact is, my way of thinking is there is a strength in femininity that is different than the strength in masculinity. And as a woman trying to compensate for feeling like limited just because of generational issues and just a patriarchal society, a lot of women, and myself, I'll talk about me, it's just like I will take on masculine energy in order to compensate, almost like, because we live in a patriarchal society where being organized and tough and all these things is considered almost stronger and more empowering. Okay. Right? So I take on these masculine traits in order to be strong in society's view, when I don't have to be strong in that way, is what I'm kind of working on. Of being able, I can be strong in my tenderness. Yeah. Because I learned that with the women in my life. That I don't have to, like, when I'm in this guard and this feeling of like the strong women, quote unquote, were very masculine, like, I'm not gonna let nobody mess with me like this, da 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 da. But the strength that I felt through Mama Ramonita was her femininity. In her softness is where I felt strength. Because when I would come in like da 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 da, she would break that down by being tender and being empathetic and seeing what was going on. Yeah. And it's a different strength. That is the strength, the feminine strength that I'm trying to cultivate, of being able to not react in aggression, but in empathy and compassion, and being able to be attuned to somebody's needs and to my needs without it being challenging. And that's what I consider to be the feminine strength that either man or woman can express and cultivate. But the feminine energy of just being able to like squash things and just to be like, I see you.
Wow, that's some deep stuff.
I've been doing a lot of work on cultivating my feminine energy, because I had squashed that so much. I've been doing a lot of work on embracing my femininity and not seeing it as weaker as I've been perceived to.
Wow, this is like hitting me really hard because many reasons. One of the reasons is women are told that they have to be skinny and tiny and small.
Ugh.
And that's like, and then men are told that they need to bulk up and they need to be like, have 6-packs and like take up more space, whereas the woman is told to be so small that they almost disappear. And that idea is just so annoying because I never realized how much that even came into my own life. I didn't even realize how much that affected who I wanted to be, what kind of woman I would want to be. Because I have the opposite problem. I want to have more masculine energy, quote unquote. Like I want to appear intimidating a little bit more because I want to be respected, and that's the annoying part. Exactly.
Bam.
I want, and then the thing is, I was talking to also. We always talk about him.
And that's a challenge. Like that's a challenge of like we think that we're only respected if we have masculine energy, and it's just like even though it's the women that's coming up, you know, and there's this shift of woman power and girl power, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah. My question is always like, are we doing it with feminine energy, or are we just taking on the masculine energy and adopting that as women?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We should be valuing those aspects that are considered feminine just as much as we value the aspects that we consider to be masculine.
Because I think about like it's applauded and encouraged and great now that women are able, like as we were talking about, our family are able to go and be in the workforce and be professional, do all these things. But I still see a backlash of if a woman or a man, you know, this is where I'm like, if a man chooses to be home to raise a family, it's looked down upon.
Yeah.
You know, and even if a woman says, no, I'm not going to work, I'm going to stay home, it's still looked down upon. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't you do both? And it's, again, feminine qualities are not as valued as masculine qualities.
Yeah.
Whether it's a woman or a man who performs them.
That makes me think about even the Snapchat I sent you earlier. Or just the fact that, like, I felt like I had to be intimidating in order to gain respect when it's not, like you said, and we talked about this, it's not about me having to change in order to gain respect. It's people having to just respect me because I'm me. And that is something I literally just learned. Like, 22, I know 22 is not too old, but like 22 years, and I've never ever thought of that. I never thought that I would just naturally deserve that respect versus earning it. And a lot of the times I was trying to earn it through masculine qualities that
Girl, you were trying to change your voice tone. You were
I was like, and I still do that, like to this point, like when I'm not being taken seriously, like I start talking like this, or like I'm told I can't smile when I'm saying something, when like, or like not even that, or like I can't say this in the tone of voice that I have. Like, this is just my natural tone of voice. I shouldn't have to make it more stern in order for someone to listen to me, because this is who I am. And when I'm not listened to until I'm screaming, until I'm hitting something, until I'm practically like maybe, you know,
you're being aggressive.
Essentially being aggressive, that's a problem. That's such a problem. And it's not, like you said, it's not about women like can be like that. Women can be aggressive, whatever. Yeah. But no, I don't need to be aggressive for you to listen to me. I should be able to just be me and just look you in the eyes and say, hey, I don't like this, or hey, respect me, and you should respect me because I'm me. And we don't need to earn that respect. We should just have it. And like you said, it's about the people you surround yourself with. It sucks that we have to feel like we have to be more masculine in order to be respected, when we should just be respected in our femininity, and we should just be respected in general. But yeah.
Regardless. But I think, again, like we still have a lot of work to do
Mhm.
as a society. As we were talking about, like, just dude, it's only like 2 generations, like from our grandmothers to our mothers, the drastic change of being told no, you can't, to all of a sudden having like this empowerment of women who are able to do things that they weren't able to do before. It's like a big swing. That women can and are able to do what they can, and they have it all. You know, like, this is the message that our moms receive. Like, you can have a family, and you can have a marriage, and you can have kids, and you can have a profession, and you can have a career, and you could do all of it. You could do everything.
Yeah.
Right. And now, like, that went from a pendulum swing from where our grandparents were, where it's just like, no, you can't. So now, like, I think we're coming to a point where, as a society, we're still working on, okay, this whole women can do everything is not really working. We also need support in being able to care for families and being able to have a career, like, and that men can step up into these roles as well, that there is more of support in community and society of building each other up and allowing ourselves to choose for ourselves, that not just one end has to carry most of the burden, whether it's one side or the other, but having a mutual respect for the different masculine and feminine energies and how they complement each other, and allowing us to really choose for ourselves what path we want to take without being limited or overburdened, because we have to do something. So
just because we can do anything doesn't mean we have to do everything.
yes, because that's a big message that I've been unpacking, of just because I can do all these things doesn't mean I have to do all of the things. That is exactly what we learn about women, is that we have to do everything. And those are things that like we mentioned, we're unlearning of allowing ourselves permission to be imperfect, to be vulnerable, to seek help, to be strong and energetic, to be all these things that we choose to be, but allowing ourselves the permission to just be. Yeah. What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for my feminine energy.
Oh.
What are you grateful for?
Oh. I am grateful. Because you said feminine energy, and like part of me is like, I want to sing my masculine energy. Just because I have like that, I want to be different. But I am grateful for the opportunity to learn I can be whole. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, to embrace my feminine energy and to really embrace it and love it and nurture it and see it for what it is without judgment, and to step into it, and to be able to do the same with my masculine energy and not critique and judge it, but be able to have both parts of who I am and be whole.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for therapy. Thank you, therapist.
Thank you, therapy.
Yo, therapy's been big in helping me figure out how to be a woman. Let me tell you. Shout out to all my therapists who've helped me along the way.
Oh no. I'm just
Yes.
That's good, but I've had some bad ones. But that doesn't matter. That's fine.
You know what? There are some bad therapists. Coming from a therapist, there are some bad therapists, and there's some really good ones.
Yeah, and their good ones make it worth it, though.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. Just got to find the right one. So, with that being said, thank you, guys. Thank you, Gabi, for sharing your space and your stories. Thank you, homies who are listening and watching us. Thank you for the support.
Thank you.
follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We are on IAmHerePod on both platforms. Message us. Let us know your thoughts. Challenge us. Correct me if I was wrong, because I know I may be saying some things. But let us know your stories too.
Yeah.
Message us also on our email is IAmHerePod@gmail.com, and subscribe, share, let us know what you want us to talk about next, and we are immensely grateful and glad that you are here.
Thank you for being here with us.